The laughter echoed across the grand wedding courtyard before the vows had even begun. Guests whispered behind expensive smiles, cameras captured judgment instead of joy, and cruel eyes followed the bride as she walked toward the man waiting in a wheelchair. Many believed they were witnessing the biggest mistake of her life. Some pitied her. Others mocked her openly. No one imagined that within a few hours, every single person laughing would wish they had never uttered a word. Before we begin, if you believe kindness is more important than appearances and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. The wedding took place just outside Boston, Massachusetts, where beautiful stone buildings overlooked peaceful gardens filled with blooming flowers. It should have been the happiest day of Rebecca Carter's life, yet every step toward the altar felt heavier than the last. Her white dress carried a few stains from kneeling moments earlier to comfort the man she loved after one guest accidentally knocked his wheelchair against a flower arrangement. The stains didn't bother Rebecca. What hurt her was hearing strangers laugh while pretending they were only joking. Rebecca had grown up in a small American town where her parents taught her that character mattered more than wealth or beauty. They worked ordinary jobs, never owned expensive things, and often struggled to pay bills, but their home overflowed with kindness. From childhood, Rebecca volunteered at hospitals, nursing homes, and community centers. She learned that every scar told a story and every person deserved dignity. Several years earlier, while working as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation hospital in Boston, Rebecca met Jonathan Brooks. He had survived a devastating car accident that left him unable to walk. Most patients welcomed visitors, but Jonathan preferred silence. He rarely smiled, rarely spoke, and spent hours staring out the window as if the world outside no longer belonged to him. Rebecca never forced conversations. Instead, she treated him with quiet respect. Every therapy session became another opportunity to remind him that his life still had value. Slowly, Jonathan began sharing pieces of his story. He admitted that after the accident, many friends disappeared. Business partners stopped calling. Even distant relatives treated him differently, as though the wheelchair had erased everything he once was. Rebecca never asked about his career or finances. She cared only about helping him heal emotionally as well as physically. They spent months discussing books, faith, family, and hope. She discovered a man with remarkable intelligence, incredible humility, and an unusually generous heart. Jonathan admired Rebecca because she never looked at the wheelchair before looking into his eyes. As their friendship deepened into love, people around Rebecca became increasingly skeptical. Some co-workers warned that caring for a disabled husband would ruin her future. Others quietly suggested she could find someone healthier, younger, or more successful. Rebecca listened politely but refused to let fear decide her future. Jonathan tried ending the relationship more than once. He believed Rebecca deserved a life free from hospital visits, medical appointments, and constant challenges. He confessed that loving him would never be easy. Rebecca simply smiled and reminded him that real love was never measured by convenience. When Jonathan finally proposed, he used a simple silver ring instead of a flashy diamond. Rebecca accepted without hesitation. Unknown to almost everyone, Jonathan insisted on keeping one enormous secret. He never mentioned that he owned Brooks Global Technologies, one of America's fastest-growing software and renewable energy companies. After the accident, he stepped away from public appearances and allowed executives to run daily operations while he recovered privately. The media assumed he had retired permanently. Rebecca never searched his background online because she believed people deserved to tell their own stories when they were ready. News of their engagement spread quickly through family and friends. Some congratulated them sincerely, but many whispered that Rebecca must either feel sorry for Jonathan or secretly hope to inherit money from relatives. Ironically, none of them knew how incredibly wealthy he actually was. The wedding morning became even more painful. Guests wearing designer clothing exchanged sarcastic smiles. Several people questioned why such a beautiful young woman would marry a man confined to a wheelchair. A few even suggested she would regret her decision within months. Rebecca heard enough to understand exactly how little they valued compassion. Her parents stood proudly beside her throughout the ceremony. Although they noticed the cruel comments, they never allowed bitterness to replace joy. They knew their daughter had chosen love for the right reasons. Jonathan remained calm despite every insult. Years of living with a disability had taught him that ignorance often spoke louder than wisdom. Still, seeing Rebecca become the target of ridicule because of him broke his heart. The ceremony itself was breathtaking. Under clear blue skies, surrounded by flowers and soft music, Rebecca and Jonathan promised to remain faithful through every challenge life could bring. Their vows carried extraordinary weight because both understood hardship far better than many couples twice their age. The mocking continued during the reception. One guest laughed loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, predicting the marriage would never last. Another claimed Rebecca had thrown away her future. Phones recorded awkward moments, expecting embarrassment rather than celebration. Then something unexpected happened. A long line of black luxury vehicles entered the estate. Security professionals stepped out first, followed by respected business leaders, governors, charitable foundation directors, military veterans, and internationally recognized entrepreneurs. Every person walked directly toward Jonathan with enormous respect. The ballroom slowly fell silent. The master of ceremonies welcomed everyone before making an announcement that instantly transformed the atmosphere. He thanked Jonathan Brooks, founder and billionaire CEO of Brooks Global Technologies, for quietly donating hundreds of millions of dollars to children's hospitals, veteran rehabilitation centers, disability research programs, scholarships, and disaster relief across the United States during the past decade. The room froze. Guests stared in complete disbelief. Some nearly dropped their glasses. Others suddenly remembered every cruel joke they had made only minutes earlier. But Jonathan's next decision surprised everyone even more. Instead of speaking about business achievements or personal wealth, he stood with assistants beside Rebecca and explained that the greatest blessing in his life was not becoming a billionaire. It was finding someone who loved him before knowing anything about his success. He shared that Rebecca believed in him when she thought he was simply a man rebuilding his life after tragedy. She never asked about money, status, or power. She saw only the human being beneath the wheelchair. Many guests lowered their eyes in shame. Some quietly wiped away tears. Rebecca herself looked stunned because it was the first time she had learned the full truth about Jonathan's life. For a brief moment she struggled to process everything. Then she smiled exactly as she always had, not because of the wealth she had just discovered, but because the man she loved remained the same humble soul she had chosen months earlier. After the reception, reporters rushed to cover what they called the most surprising wedding of the year. Headlines focused on the billionaire revelation, but those who truly understood the story recognized something much deeper. The real miracle wasn't Jonathan's fortune. It was Rebecca's unwavering character. In the months that followed, Rebecca and Jonathan used their resources to create rehabilitation centers for accident survivors across America. They expanded access to physical therapy for families who could never afford treatment. They funded scholarships for students pursuing careers in healthcare and established programs helping people with disabilities find meaningful employment. Jonathan often said that wealth could build buildings, but compassion built hope. Rebecca became an inspiration to countless people who had experienced judgment because of their choices. Letters arrived from across the country thanking her for proving that genuine love could still exist in a world obsessed with appearances. Years later, many of the same guests who once mocked the couple admitted they had learned an unforgettable lesson. They realized they had judged a man by his wheelchair instead of his heart, and a woman by their assumptions instead of her integrity. The greatest victory wasn't that Jonathan was a billionaire. It was that neither success nor suffering had changed the goodness inside him. Rebecca never married wealth. She married courage, humility, resilience, and kindness. The money simply revealed how blind everyone else had been. If this story touched your heart, please write this in the comments. Kindness always sees what judgment cannot. And if Rebecca and Jonathan's journey inspired you, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing powerful stories that remind the world that true love is never measured by appearances, but by the strength of the heart. As the years passed, people no longer remembered the laughter that once filled the wedding courtyard. They remembered the couple who answered cruelty with grace, judgment with forgiveness, and pride with humility. Their story became living proof that the richest person in any room is not the one with the biggest fortune, but the one whose heart remains full of love when the world gives every reason to become bitter. And in the end, that was the greatest treasure either of them could ever possess.